The woman looks ahead in horror and covers her mouth. The man is running in this direction because their child is dying. This is a town with no people. There are countless notices on the bulletin boards looking for people. It's like a mass disappearance. An abandoned supermarket. A couple with their 3 children are shopping. No shoes on their tiptoes, careful with whatever they take, like they don't dare to make a sound. Exiting the supermarket after picking up something, still without shoes. They walk on the sandy path that has been laid down, because it's a quiet walk. But then came the accident. Just now, at the supermarket, the younger son took a toy. The father had removed the batteries, but what he didn't know was that the sister saw that her brother was sad. She quietly gave him the battery, which meant the toy would ring. At this time, they were walking on a bridge. Suddenly, the toy sounded. The father's expression became frozen in time. Mom looks at her little boy in horror. Dad dashes over to him without a second thought. At the same time, the sound of running is heard from the forest across the road. This sound is getting closer and closer. The father is still one step behind. He watched his son die, watching his brother die. Still they dare not make a sound, because the world has been taken over by a monster. They have no sight, but their hearing is superb. They use sound to determine the location of humans. Then they hunt them down and kill them. Back home, this is the first time the family of 5 has been reduced in size. It's a heartbreaking experience, but survival must go on. They put warning lights and surveillance outside their home. Everything that makes a sound is controlled. Living in the basement. Leaves are used as cutlery. The floor is covered with thick cotton cloths. Newspaper was put on the walls for soundproofing. But Mom is pregnant again. The cries of pain during labor and the cries of the newborn after birth were enough to get them killed. In order to welcome the new baby safely, the mother keeps a close eye on her health, calculating the delivery date. She also prepared a soundproof bassinet and an oxygen tank, as her eldest daughter is deaf. So Dad kept researching hearing aids, but each time he failed. One day the father was out with his son. On the way they saw an old man. The old man's eyes were filled with despair, because his partner had been bitten to death by a monster. The father looked at the old man's eyes, and he felt something was wrong. The old man didn't want to live anymore. He opened his mouth and shouted. The father grabbed his son and ran away. He hid behind a tree and covered his mouth. Soon, the old man is hunted by the creature as it races towards him. On the other side, the mother is looking at a picture of her little boy. But suddenly her water breaks. The due date is early. She tries to find her daughter, but her daughter has just left the house. The mother has to go to the basement first, but she accidentally stepped on a nail. The picture frame in her hand falls to the floor. The sound is enough to attract a monster. She lifts her paws in pain. She walks over and turns on the warning light, but just as she was about to go upstairs, the monster was already here. The pain in her mother's stomach was killing her, but she didn't dare make a sound. She picks up the alarm clock and sets the time, and hid. The monster has arrived downstairs. That's when the alarm clock went off. She took the opportunity to run upstairs, but just as she reached the door, another monster appears. She had to lie down in the bathtub and prepare to give birth. Any woman who's had a baby knows what it's like. If she doesn't scream out, she would have died from the pain. But if she did, she would have been killed by a monster. But even if she doesn't cry out, the pain makes her breathing louder. It was only a matter of time before the monster found her. Luckily, her father and son are back. Seeing the warning lights go on, Dad rushed to tell his son to set off fireworks from a distance. He went to get his gun. The son ran as fast as he could. He came to the clearing and lit the fireworks. The monster immediately drew the sound of the fireworks away. Hearing the loud sound of the fireworks, Mom is finally released. Dad rushes into the house with his gun, looking at his wife who had given birth to a child. He was heartbroken. He took mother and child to the basement. Then he went out to look for the 2 children, but he didn't notice. The water pipes in the house started to leak, and on the other side, after his brother lit the fireworks, the monster was drawn this way. He was terrified. He hides in the cornfield, shivering. His sister, who had gone out, saw the fireworks ignite. She knew something was wrong. She rushed home. In the cornfield, she found her brother, already terrified. The monster was nearby. They had to climb to the top of the corn crib. No prey to be found. The monster returned to the basement. By now the basement was full of water. The mother, worried about the baby, slowly stepping into the water. She quietly picks up the baby. At that moment the monster emerges from the water, right in front of her eyes. She is terrified, but she can't panic now. She slowly retreats behind the curtain of water, but the creature is about to hear her. Mom and baby are dead for sure. But then, her brother on the corn crib accidentally falls over. This makes a big noise. The monster in the basement heard the sound. Mom is safe, but the brother was in danger. The boy steps on the steel door of the corn barn and falls into the corn pile. No matter how hard he tries to climb, the corn kernels are like a swamp. The deeper he climbs, the deeper he sinks, and the steel door above his head falls. He was nearly killed. His sister saw that the situation was critical. She jumped down to save her brother. She pushes the door towards him. With a point of strength, he finally climbs out, but the sister was buried in the corn. The brother reaches out and pulls his sister up. The danger of being buried alive is gone, but a greater danger is on the way. The father in the cornfield is watching a monster speeding towards the corn corn barn. He knows it's coming for the baby. The two siblings also know that the noise would attract the monster. They hold their breath, but it was too late. The monster is coming. Luckily, the pile of corn limits the monster's movement. The siblings rush to block their bodies with the steel door, but the monster still comes. It pierced the door in one blow. Suddenly the monster seems to be frightened by something and fled with a shriek. It turned out to be the sister's hearing aid. The hearing aid my father had worked on was defective. It often makes a whistling sound, but the siblings don't know why the monster is running away. There's no need to worry about that now. They had to get out of the corn crib. Dad arrives just in time, but the danger is still there. The sound of the monster is coming from the cornfield. Dad rushes to put his siblings in the car. He takes the axe and guards the outside of the car, but the monster was right over his head. It knocked Dad off his feet with one blow. The son was worried about his father. He gets up the courage to shout. The monster is drawn away. The brother closed the door, but the monster is too strong. The car is about to be breached. Dad looked at the scene. He made a decision that any father would make. Standing up in excruciating pain, he said to his siblings in sign language that he loved you. Live well. The daughter shook her head, but Dad opened his mouth anyway. No miracle. Dad is preyed upon by a monster. The siblings have no time to grieve. They ran away. Soon they found their mother. The three of them shed tears in memory of their dad. But the danger wasn't over yet. The sound of monsters is heard again nearby. Mom takes the children and hides in the basement again. Sister looks at the table full of hearing aid parts. She can't help but think of her dad again. Here comes the monster. Mom points her gun at it, but she knew the gun has no power over the monster. The monster was breathing and slowly approaching. And that's when Sister remembered that the monster had been chased away from the corn crib. It dawned on her. The whine of the hearing aid was the monster's weakness. She immediately put on her hearing aid, and sure enough, the creature began to twitch, but it hadn't escaped. Sister puts the hearing aid on the microphone. A loud whistling sound that sends the creature straight to the ground. But in a few moments, the monster got up again. Mom shoots. The weakened monster is killed straight away. But the sound of the shot brought other monsters. On the monitor, two monsters come flying at us. Mother and daughter look at each other. Mom reloads her gun. Sister takes out the microphone with determination. Though Dad is gone, the four of them will remain in this silent place to protect their father.